welcome back to Epic Beauty Fail. I'm Jessica. On today's video, I'm going to be going over my 5 days of foundation wrap up. So I'm going to tell you guys what my ranking is, and gals, I always use guys, I'm sorry, what my ranking is of the 5 foundations I tried this month. So if you do not remember, I did try all powder foundations this month, and I have some pretty strong feelings about these foundations. Let's just say I wasn't impressed. I have tried some other powder foundations before that I have liked. However, these powder foundations that I tried during May had some challenges. I expect even a powder foundation to be able to cover up my redness and give me some sort of coverage. And a few of them didn't give me anything at all. It was more of a setting powder than an actual foundation. So if I'm going to be wearing foundation, I want it to smooth out my skin tone. I don't want it to just like sit there and not do anything. So you'll see that that is how I ranked my foundations this month. Number 5 is my foundation that had the least amount of coverage, and number 1 is my foundation that had the most amount of coverage, at least as far as I was concerned. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. My number 5 foundation should come as no surprise if you watch my 5 videos. It is the Pixi by Petra. This was the color correcting powder foundation in the color number 1, which was cream. Now, this only comes, I think, in like 3 shades. It comes in like almost no shades at all. And quite honestly, this is not a foundation. I will swatch it for you guys. I mean, there you can see on my finger, it does appear that it's giving some sort of color, but once you put it on your skin, it just totally blends away. There's nothing. And that is an issue for me. I do expect to have at least some coverage. Now, I will say this. I did use this as a setting powder, and I do enjoy it a lot better as a setting powder than as an actual foundation. Actually, in my beauty box look that I think is getting posted tomorrow, I use this as a setting powder, and I do like it as that. So if you are just looking for a setting powder that has a little bit of color to it, try this out, because I think it works as long as you can find a shade that works for you. This I would not call a foundation at all. I would call this a pressed setting powder, because this is not a foundation. At least as far as my skin tone was concerned, you could see everything as far as I'm concerned. But as a setting powder, I think it works really well. All right, my number 4. This one, I'm actually wearing it today, believe it or not, but this is the NYX Stay Matte But Not Flat Powder Foundation. Now, this one I had a little bit of problems with. I actually had to go in with a wet sponge in order to get any sort of coverage on this. And again, I'm actually using this on top of my number 1 foundation. My number 1 foundation for this month is a little bit dark for me, and it does not necessarily oxidize, but it is definitely a little bit dark for me, and it's very luminous. So if that gives you any hints. But it is a very luminous foundation. I actually prefer to be a little bit more matte, so I did put this on top of that foundation. So I do like it in that regard. Now, this is a very powdery foundation. You can see it there on my finger. Put it on my skin. Again, it sort of just blends away almost to nothing. And I do have freckles all over my hand, so I would expect to be able to cover up my freckles. And when I use a liquid foundation, I am able to do that. And I've used other powder foundations that can do that. But this one is more of again, this is similar to the Pixi by Petra. It does give a little bit more coverage than that one does. That one gives absolutely nothing. This one you can actually get some coverage out of. If you go back to my video, I did use a wet sponge, and I was able to get more coverage out of this with a wet sponge. But I did get a little bit of hard pan, and this is just really powdery. So that's kind of why I'm in it as my number 4. But it is good, and it will work for you as a setting powder. I think that had a little bit more of a shade range. This one is in the color 01 Ivory, in case you're wondering. All right, on to my number 3 powder. My number 3 powder was the Laura Geller Baked, Balance, and Brighten Foundation in the shade Porcelain. This one was just kind of eh. I didn't feel like it gave me a super high coverage, but it did brighten my skin a lot. The reason I tried this and the reason I wanted to try this was because I watched the Taylor, and she uses this like all the time as her setting powder. This and a powder from Physicians Formula, I think are the two powders she consistently uses as her setting powders, and she does love this. And I would say that again, you could use this as a setting powder. You can use this. This is when you're starting to get into the three that I feel you can use as an actual foundation. This did give me more coverage. However, it is there it is on my finger. It is very powdery, just like the other ones. But you can see, you can start to see this one right in here. It does start to give you a little bit more coverage than the other two did. And just overall, I don't think it gave fantastic coverage, but it definitely gave at least some coverage, which is why it's kind of just in the middle there. It's kind of it's my number 3. I would definitely recommend you use this as a setting powder if you are looking for color. If you're looking for more of a translucent or something that's not really there, you don't want this. You want maybe the NYX or the Pixie. But this one is nice. It definitely brightens. So if you're using a matte foundation and you want to brighten yourself up, this would be a good one for that. Just like the NYX one would be a really good one if you want to be a little bit more matte. I feel like that's what gave me my matte today, because like I said, my number 1 foundation is very more luminous, and I was able to mattify it a little bit with the NYX one. So these could almost be opposites. If you have a matte foundation you're trying to make luminous, use this one. If you have a luminous foundation that you're trying to make matte, use this one. So there you go. But it definitely has more coverage than the other 2 foundations that I've talked about so far. All right, then I have my last 2 foundations are the IT Celebration Foundation and the Bare Minerals Original. If you've used either one of these, you probably know which one is number 1. But let me go ahead and show you. So this is the number 2. This is in the shade Fair. And then the Bare Minerals Original is a loose powder, so I don't want to get any out of here. This is Fair Ivory 02. I probably could go in and get the 01. I think there's an 01 shade. I can't remember the shade name. But I definitely did not get the brightest or the lightest shade in this, because when I swatched it in store on my hand, this one I felt was the best shade match for me. But I think a lighter shade would actually work better for me once I actually had it on my face. So my number 2 foundation is the sound effects are free. is the IT Cosmetics Celebration Foundation. Now this one I did like. I struggle with IT Cosmetics and their foundations not being light enough. And this was definitely a powdery foundation. Like, this powder got everywhere, but you can see there on my finger, I ran my finger around the interior of the pan about as many times as I ran it around with the other ones. And you can start to see some coverage here on my hand with that one. It's definitely staying on my finger. This one does definitely give more coverage. Honestly, I didn't really like the IT Celebration Foundation Illumination. Pretty much I would only wear that when I wanted to really look luminous. But I would tell you that that foundation is one of the ones that I've already tried that gives a lot more coverage. So this one, if I would put like half of my face with this one and half with the illumination version, honestly, the illumination actually gives me more coverage. I don't know why, and I don't know what the difference is between this formula and that one. I really haven't really compared them, but if I take a brush and put that on my that one, the illumination foundation, if I put that one on my face, you start to see coverage right away. This one, not so much, but it does give more coverage than some of the other ones I've talked about here today. So that's why it's number 2 and not lower in the list, but I do struggle with the color range in IT Cosmetics. I think their color range is just a whole bunch of mediums. But I did use a lot of this. I mean, the imprint is gone in this. So I'm nowhere near pan, I think, but the imprint is definitely gone. So that means my number one foundation is the Bare Minerals Original Foundation. I felt that this gave me the most coverage. It definitely illuminated my skin, made me look very luminous, which is why I put the NYX over top of it, because I wanted to bring it down just a little bit. I felt it was a little bit too luminous. I don't normally like that very much. They do have a matte version, and I think I'm going to have to give that one a try. Pick that one up and see if I like the matte version a little bit better. I will definitely get the lighter shade in the matte version, because the Fair Ivory was just a little bit too dark for me. And in fact, this being darker actually helped the NYX one look like it gave me coverage, because I had this on my skin and then I put the NYX over top of it, and I could see where I had put the NYX because it is a little bit lighter than this shade. Overall, my feelings on powder foundation. For some reason, I'm having a little bit of problems with my skin being a little bit drier this year than it normally is, even though it is the end of May. I don't know if that's because I've been wearing makeup this year, and I have not in the past worn makeup, and I don't know if just the constant cleansing of my face is making it be more rough. I do use a liquid chemical exfoliator, so I shouldn't be having those problems, but I am. Like, if I zoom the camera in right now, you'd see that there are certain spots on my face. Maybe from this far away you can tell, but there are certain spots on my face where I'm definitely having some dry patches right now. Like along the bridge of my nose is very dry right now, around my nose, a little bit on this cheek over here. It's just very dry right now, and even though I'm using moisturizer, and I think one of my problems is I just switched moisturizers. I had been using one for a long time, and about a month ago or so I switched moisturizers, and even though I'm using more of the new moisturizer, I don't feel like it's doing as much for my skin as the old moisturizer was. So we'll see. I might have to switch that up a little bit. I don't know. So anyway, it has come time to tell you guys what my foundations are for June. So if you don't want to see this portion of the video, you can skip ahead maybe about 3 minutes or so, somewhere in there. I think most of you guys do just go ahead and stick around to see which foundations I'm doing in the next month anyway. So, all right. So my June foundations are, so this month I'm using 3 foundations that are more drugstore pricing and 2 foundations that are higher end pricing. So I'm going to start with the 2 higher end foundations. They're actually newer foundations. I know a lot of my foundation reviews are some that are a little bit older foundations, just because those are the ones I haven't tried yet and I've heard so many things about. But these 2 high-end foundations are actually newer foundations. So the first one is the Sunday Riley, the Influencer Liquid Foundation. This is going to be one of my foundations for June. And then the Cover FX Power Play is the other high-end foundation that I am trying. All right. And then the 3 drugstore priced foundations. The first one is the Physicians Formula, the Healthy Foundation. There it is. Okay. And then I'm trying the Ordinary Serum Foundation, which looks like this, and the Ordinary Coverage Foundation, which looks like this. So these are both from the Ordinary. They're actually the same shade, believe it or not. And the one on the right is the Serum Foundation. The one on the left is the Coverage Foundation, so the more heavy coverage one. So those are the 5 foundations I'm trying out in June. Tune in next week, and you will see all 5 of those being tested, at least the first impression videos for those 5. So that's the end of my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up down below. If you haven't already and you would like to be, please hit the red subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that little bell to notify you when I do upload new videos. And if you have any comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Have you ever tried any of the powder foundations that I tried out in May, and do you disagree or agree with my determinations of those foundations? And are you interested in any of the foundations that I'm trying out for June, or have you tried them yet? Because they aren't too new. The Ordinary foundations came out last year, I think. The Physicians Formula one came out just a couple months ago, maybe last December, last November, somewhere in there. And then these 2 just came out within the last couple of months as well. So I am trying a couple of newer foundations this coming month. Don't always do that, but I'm going to this month. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next Epic Beauty Fail. Bye.